My daughter's getting married. Come to the wedding.
After enduring harassment for 10 years from Jason and Emily, I moved out to live alone in my new place, leaving them behind. 5 years later, I got a call from Jason. As I listened in shock and confusion, someone revealed a shocking truth to me. Hearing that, I was angry and decided to take revenge on them. I'll never forgive them. I'll show them what I'm made of. I devised a plan and immediately set it in motion. My name is Lisa Smith, 55 years old. I married my husband, Jason Brown, through a matchmaking service. It has been 10 years since we became a couple. These 10 years have been like hell for me. Jason and I each had a child from previous relationships. He had a daughter, and I had a son. I was 45 when I was going to the matchmaking service, working as an office worker in a factory. Jason was 35 and a corporate employee at the time. His daughter, Emily, was 15 and in her last year of middle school when we remarried. My son, Thomas, was 25 then, working as a professional. Thomas is kind-hearted and has been exceptionally caring and supportive of me since his father's death. He landed a job at a major brokerage firm, an hour's drive from home. I thought the daily commute would be tough, so I suggested he live on his own. But Thomas steadfastly refused.
What would you do if I left, Mom? If something happens, there's no one around to help you.
Since losing his father, Thomas had become overly anxious about me. Probably, the loss of his father led to a strong sense of insecurity in him. I couldn't bear to keep him tied down at home because of me. If I need to move forward, I decided to start dating again. That's how I met Jason. We both had children from previous relationships and shared similar struggles, which brought us together. I thought we could support each other through life, but reality wasn't so sweet. The first 6 months of marriage with Jason went well. Emily was friendly and made an effort to build a relationship with me. Seeing us, Thomas must have felt relieved and started considering living on his own as Emily entered high school.
I was worried about leaving you alone, Mom, but since they both are good people, I think it's time for me to be independent. I can't stay with Mom forever, and I have a girlfriend now. I want to cherish the time with her.
Seeing Thomas's bashful smile, I was surprised and happy. I think he had been holding back in romance, caring for me. But if marrying Jason was the push Thomas needed, nothing could make me happier. Thomas has looked after me, sacrificing his life. I want him to be happy. I don't want him to feel inferior because of me. With all my heart, I supported Thomas's independence. However, Jason opposed this.
What? Thomas is starting to live alone? That's out of the question. Who do you think will cover the high rent, heating costs, and living expenses now?
I couldn't believe these words, expecting Jason to agree. Jason was counting on Thomas's money. Thomas had been contributing to household expenses since we lived together.
I'm working and of age to live on my own. Since I'm still living at my parents' house, it's only natural that I contribute to the household expenses.
He has helped with rent, heating, and living expenses. But we, as a couple, should cover those ourselves. I never thought it was Thomas's duty to contribute financially. So Jason's view shocked me. He treated Thomas like a cash cow.
You earn little with your part-time job. If Thomas leaves, my burden increases. Give me a break. I don't earn much either. Can't you keep Thomas here? I can't take care of you and Emily alone.
For the first time, I felt irritated with Jason, who complained tiredly, loosening his tie after work. When I remarried Jason, I quit my factory job. I left my full-time job because Jason's house was far from my workplace. I didn't want Emily, who was preparing for exams, to be burdened with housework, so I took on the main role in managing our home. Consequently, I resigned to celebrate our marriage and took a part-time job at a nearby creative cuisine restaurant. I believed that together we could support Emily's education and manage our household. However, as Jason's share of responsibilities seemed to increase, he frequently complained and was unwilling to accept Thomas's decision to live independently. Unable to tolerate his grumbling any longer, I sharply countered. So, if I increase my working hours and our income, you wouldn't have anything to complain about, right? The idea of keeping Thomas at home was not in my mind at all. It was no joke to make him take care of his parents, who were still young and able to work. Even if I were unable to work, I had no intention of burdening my son. We should take care of ourselves. If it's about money, I will earn it, I resolved, glaring at Jason as he mockingly snorted.
You can increase your hours if you like, but you better manage the household too. I'm working full-time and Emily has school. Don't expect us to take up the slack. If you can handle both work and home perfectly and earn what Thomas has been contributing, then I won't mind him moving out. But if you fail even once, I'll bring Thomas back. No questions asked.
I nodded without yielding at Thomas' almost threatening words. If I could handle it, Thomas wouldn't have to bear the burden. I'll do my best. Provoked by Jason, I was not about to stay silent. My rebellious spirit took over, and I accepted his challenge. After Thomas moved out, both physically and mentally exhausting days followed. The workload at home increased significantly as I had to prepare lunches and do laundry for Emily's school activities, in addition to the expenses previously covered by Thomas. Despite her aspirations to become a fashion designer, Emily unexpectedly joined the volleyball team. The food Emily eats quickly increases, and the things I do more than double what we used to do, and the burden continues to increase.
Why does this fabric softener smell different? I told you which one to use for my clothes and which for my uniform.
Emily became increasingly particular since entering high school. Becoming a regular member of the volleyball team in her freshman year, her disciplined life led to a deferred demeanor, and venting her frustrations on me became routine. I'm sorry, I'll be more careful next time.
You're really useless. I think my previous mom was better.
She would often bring up the name of Jason's ex-wife, who left him for cheating, and she had plenty to say about the lunch too. If she even suspected the use of frozen food, she'd scream at the top of her lungs, and there were times when she'd push it back untouched. Fed up with her unreasonable behavior, I confided in Jason about it. But Jason, with a smirk as if he had been waiting for this, brought up Thomas as if to threaten me.
You haven't forgotten, have you? If you can't handle the household properly, remember our deal to bring Thomas back? First of all, Emily is a teenage girl. It's natural for her to have strong preferences, right? Imagine taking a lunch full of frozen food and being ridiculed by her friends. What if she refuses to go to school because of that? Are you ready to take responsibility? Even though she's putting effort into her club activities and finally made it to the regular player, if your actions push Emily into refusing to go to school, I won't stand for it.
But I have my job too, and couldn't you at least cooperate a little?
No way. If neglecting the household because of work, then bring Thomas back and find a way to manage the finances again. If you reduce your workload, then there's no problem, right? You made that promise, so stick to your word. If you can't do it, then sort things out for Thomas to come back. That's it.
Whenever something happened, I'd be threatened with Thomas, and these days of intimidation continued. Because of that, I couldn't even think of any other way to endure this life in an environment where I couldn't talk to anyone. I've had enough. I wish I could just disappear from this world. It was just as I started to think such thoughts. Mentally and physically exhausted, I finally collapsed at work. I was exhausted and allowed to lie in the office's break room.
I'm glad Lisa is working hard, but you look clearly too pale. Everyone else is worried too. Did something happen at home? If work is too much, just tell me. I don't want to force you to work. We can adjust your working hours as much as you need.
It's pathetic, even though I chose this path. I cried tears of self-pity, and Tyler, the manager, approached me with concern, causing me to burst into tears. As I cried, other part-time workers and employees, who heard the commotion, also came to check on me out of concern. However, I couldn't talk to anyone about what was happening at home. I was afraid of being criticized by others. Because I remarried, Thomas could leave home with peace of mind. But if I were to talk about the ordeal I'm going through, I'm sure divorce would be hinted at. Some might even advise me to ask Thomas to come back. But if I did that, I might burden Thomas unnecessarily and deprive him of his freedom, which he left home for, just to avoid worry. I don't want to do that. I don't want to burden him further with my issues. That's why I couldn't tell anyone about Jason and them, even though I wanted to. I was trapped in this dilemma, and in the end, I continued living like this for 10 years. Even after graduating high school, Emily didn't leave home. Instead, she pursued her dream of becoming a fashion designer by attending a fashion school for 2 years, and then got a job at an apparel company. During this time, the harassment towards me persisted, and now it even extended to criticizing my clothes, hairstyle, and makeup.
Mom, you seriously have no sense of style. Remember what you wore to come to my high school? It was a disaster. I got teased by my friends so much afterwards. You have a daughter aiming to become a fashion designer. So if you have any sense of being my mom, couldn't you at least try to dress a bit better? That's why Dad doesn't see you as a woman anymore.
With remarks like these, I endured days of being mocked by Emily. But I couldn't say anything back. I just had to bear it. Since Thomas left, Jason never made time for us as a couple, regardless of whether I contributed financially to the household or managed the chores perfectly. I felt more like being a maid than a family member. As Emily said, for the past 10 years, Jason never treated me as a woman even once. I've had enough. I can't stand this life anymore. I want to run away right now. At my breaking point, I pleaded with Jason and Emily to let us live separately.
Separate? Are you kidding me? Who's going to take care of the house then?
Exactly. I'm busy with work, and Dad is always working overtime. We don't have time to do chores. You can just leave this house.
I'm not some kind of maid. Fed up with their selfish arguments, I screamed hysterically. For the past 10 years, I've lived like a slave. I'm sick of it. I have a life too. And Emily, you're already 25, right? How long do you plan on depending on your parents? When will you learn to take care of yourself? The daughter of my colleague at work said she's independent. She's been working for a major company since she was 20, and she takes care of everything at home herself. You're 5 years older than her, yet you still rely on your mom to make your lunch and leave everything from laundry to ironing to me. Aren't you ashamed? When I was 20, I was already taking care of myself and working. As I let out my accumulated frustration, Emily let out a loud voice of dissatisfaction.
Comparing your daughter to someone else's child is despicable. Taking care of your adorable daughter should be a mother's pride, shouldn't it? Yet you make it sound like it's my fault.
That's right, Lisa. Emily is at that age now and she's busy with work. Isn't supporting each other what family is about? Yet it's all about yourself. Aren't you ashamed?
Their rebuttals only fueled my anger. Do they even understand the meaning of what they're saying? I directed a disdainful look towards the two of them, who kept spewing unbelievable words. Ashamed? Then what about you saying such things? Aren't you ashamed that your daughter turned into such a mess and became a worthless woman? And isn't it because you've spoiled her like that she can't do anything? As I counted, which I hadn't done before, Jason seemed to be boiling with rage. Approaching me as if he was about to confront me, his eyes glaring fiercely with bloodshot.
What the heck? What kind of way is that to speak to your husband?
Dad, it'd be better if this twisted, old-fashioned had just left the house. Just seeing her face stresses me out.
When Emily was hit where it hurt and lost the will to retort, Jason interrupted her words, sighing in exasperation. Thinking I was finally freed from the two of them, my expression brightened with joy, and I mentally did a fist pump. Thus, I succeeded in moving away from Jason and Emily. My relocation was arranged through Tyler's introduction, and I ended up living in an apartment close to my workplace. I had discussed my family situation with Tyler in advance, and it was he who suggested that I could live in the apartment. The place is run by Tyler's wife, Martha, and her family, and they had a vacancy available. I hesitated for a moment, but honestly, the idea of living alone was daunting. Having someone nearby would be preferable. Even if Jason came to say something to me, Tyler and his team would protect me, so I was allowed to stay.
Lisa is always working hard and contributing. We should help each other out in times of need.
Please let us know if anything comes up. My husband would gladly be your bodyguard.
I struggled a lot with discussing my home situation with them. I feared getting them involved in my troubles with Jason, or that my feelings for Thomas would be dismissed. In the midst of various anxieties, Martha was the one who alleviated my fears.
Both Tyler and I know how hard you've been driven to work. You have your reasons, right? Neither Tyler nor I would ever trample on your feelings. I worry about you like family. So if you're having trouble, don't hesitate to rely on us. I want to keep supporting you for a long time.
Martha's kind and warm words made me cry and sob as I finally revealed all my circumstances to Tyler and Martha. After hearing my story, Martha embraced me. Tyler, with a stern look, crossed his arms and offered, "If Lisa is okay with it, I could talk to your husband for you." Martha also said, "You can always run away to our place," showing concern for my living situation. With the support of these warm-hearted people, I managed to leave the house. After that, I rarely responded to contact from Jason. They probably wanted to persuade me to return, but living with them again was out of the question. I explained the situation to Thomas and told him that we are now separated. If it comes to a divorce with Jason, there would be a division of property, and I would get a portion of the money he has saved. However, he is quite stingy when it comes to money. Despite the separation, he hasn't changed the financial arrangements for the house, and there's little chance he'll initiate a divorce. They thought everything would be fine as long as I could continue living as before. But my plan doesn't end here. 5 years later, I received a sudden call from Jason. I hesitated to answer at first, feeling a bad premonition. However, following someone's advice, I decided to take the call.
"My daughter is getting married. Come to the wedding."
I answered, thinking it was something serious, only to find out that Emily was getting married in a shotgun wedding. Emily's partner owns several companies, and to my surprise, she's marrying into wealth. They want to take wedding photos in a beautiful dress before she shows too much, so the ceremony was hastily arranged. The date was set for a week later, and the ceremony was to be grand. Well, yes. Initially hesitant, I decided to attend after Thomas visited me and conveyed through a note that he agreed I should go. The note said I would explain the reason later, so I informed Jason of my attendance. He was satisfied with my agreement to attend, and ended the call without hearing the rest. "What's going on, Thomas? Why do you know about Emily's wedding?" After the call ended, I turned to Thomas, confronting him about how he knew this before me. In fact, just minutes before Jason's call, Thomas had informed me about the wedding. However, Thomas should have had no contact with Emily or Jason since leaving home. So why did he know about Emily's wedding before me? As I stared at him in confusion, Thomas, with a solemn expression, began to tell me a story.
Mom, could you help me with what I'm about to tell you?
Then he revealed a shocking truth to me. A week later, on the wedding day, I was dressed and waiting at the venue for Thomas's arrival.
"It's been a while, but you still lack charm. You've really turned into an auntie in both body and face."
The person who appeared wasn't Thomas, but Jason, in a suit. Jason seemed to be showing off, wearing brand accessories he doesn't normally wear, and a newly tailored suit that looked very expensive.
Compared to your usual slob, you look a little decent today. It would be a shame for the mother to look tacky at her daughter's big day.
He was as tactless as ever. Being married to such a man was unbearably embarrassing. As I grew sick of his crude words, Thomas arrived and stood protectively between Jason and me.
It's been a while, Dad.
Thomas, with a friendly smile, managed not to arouse Jason's suspicion. Oblivious to any undercurrents, Jason casually suggested to Thomas,
It's been a while since we've met. How about a drink together?
Thanks. I have some people to greet first, but let's have that drink later. There's a lot to catch up on.
I did not miss the meaningful smile on Thomas's face. Jason, unaware of Thomas's demeanor, proceeded with us into the venue.
Our seats are over there. Let's go.
As we entered and the ceremony time neared, Jason urged me to sit down. But instead of responding to him, I headed towards the groom's side of the seating. Realizing this, he hastily grabbed my wrist, trying to stop me.
Where do you think you're going? I told you our seats are over there. Please don't embarrass me.
What are you even talking about? I shook off Jason's grip and shot him a cold glare. As he glared back at me, irritated.
Hi, I found you, Lisa. This way, this way.
What?
How come?
Tyler and Martha noticed me from the bride's side and called me over, pulling me away from Jason. Confused, Jason opened his mouth in astonishment, unable to comprehend the situation. Emily, seeing this, rushed over in surprise and explained,
Excuse me, she's my mother, and I think she's supposed to sit on my side, right?
With Emily's appearance in her bridal gown, the venue buzzed with confusion. Everyone's gaze turned to us, wondering what was happening.
Lisa is supposed to sit on my side. After all, I invited her.
Then David, the groom, watching the scene, stepped forward and dropped a bombshell on Emily. Emily and Jason, unable to grasp the situation, looked at David and Martha in shock. The guests at the venue, also confused by the unfolding situation, exchanged bewildered glances.
How do you know Lisa? And why is she on that side?
Well, it's natural you wouldn't know. The person you were planning to marry is my son, and Lisa has been working part-time at my shop.
What?
No kidding.
In this unexpected turn of events, Jason and Emily expressed their astonishment. It turned out that Emily's fiancé, David, was Tyler's son and the president of the company where Thomas worked. After graduating high school, David left home, self-taught in stock trading, and became a capable individual who managed his own company. Thomas admired him and took a job at his company. I was working in Tyler's store without knowing it at first, but it turned out that David and Thomas's girlfriend were childhood friends. When Thomas learned that David was getting married and found out who the bride was, he contacted me. After hearing the story, I explained everything to Tyler and his employees, and they helped set up this situation. When Thomas told me about it, I was shocked. I couldn't believe Thomas's dear friend was about to marry someone as despicable as you. At that moment, whispers spread through the crowd, starting to badmouth Emily. Emily, caught off guard and in front of the groom, tried to complain but quickly covered her mouth, forcing a stiff smile and politely responding. Emery closed her mouth impatiently, smiled awkwardly, and counted me as politely as she could.
Come on, Mom, stop with the nasty jokes here. It's making everyone uneasy.
Yeah, Lisa, there are things you should and shouldn't say.
Jason interjected with a forced smile, trying to approach me. Thomas, standing protectively in front of me, looked down on Jason with a firm demeanor, making the shorter man retreat in fear. Then, are all the harsh words you've regularly thrown at me okay to say? I counted and signaled to the venue staff, who then dimmed the lights and started playing a video. The moment the footage was shown, the color drained from Jason and Emily's faces, causing an uproar in the venue. The video displayed was from the time I lived with Jason and Emily, showing them verbally abusing and harassing me.
What is that?
Isn't that terrible? Is David's wife really like that? Is the president okay with marrying her? That seems really bad.
The room quickly filled with voices condemning Emily, and concern for the groom rose. Jason yelled at the staff to stop the video, while Emily, pale and shaken, covered her mouth with her hands.
What is the meaning of this? Are you trying to ruin Emily's happiness?
Ruin her happiness?
Thomas's voice trembled with anger, ready to confront Jason.
Did you ever care about Mom's happiness, ho?
Oh my gosh!
Thomas, usually mild-mannered and sociable, rarely getting angry and often laughing off unpleasant things, couldn't contain his rage this time. But in this case, I, as his mother, and David, the president of Thomas Company and a dear his friend, are being hurt by Jason and Emily, two people who are irreplaceable to Thomas. Thomas could not hold back his anger. Jason, overwhelmed by Thomas's intensity, fell to the ground, trembling with fear. Emily, regaining her composure, seemed to realize she needed to break through the situation and began to appeal to David with a tearful, pleading demeanor.
Indeed, I was a terrible daughter until Mom left the house. But I'm different now. Since finding out I was pregnant, I've learned the importance of valuing people. I've changed my heart and want to cherish you and our baby. Please believe me, you are the father of this child, so you must be prepared to raise it together, right?
Perhaps realizing it was difficult to argue against the evidence in the video, Emily showed her a pedant attitude, looking up at the groom with tear-filled eyes. She is not unattractive, and seemed to genuinely believe she could turn the situation around with her tears. However, her last statement was a mistake. Thomas, with a sly smile, moved closer to Emily as if he had been waiting for her to say those words.
Changing your heart and making such an appeal is futile. Unless you show proof that David is the father of that child, no one will believe your words.
What? What are you talking about?
Emily's tears dried instantly, and she shot a cold glare at Thomas. Seizing the moment, Thomas began to corner her with a loud voice, ensuring everyone in the venue could hear.
In fact, I heard from David about how he met you and the likely date you conceived the child, among other details. But here's the strange part. He's infertile.
What?
Shocked by this unexpected turn, Emily's face registered surprise at Thomas's revelation.
I was surprised when I heard it because David consulted me about his infertility. We even researched extensively together to see if it was possible for him. You hadn't undergone surgery or treatment to father a child, but we couldn't believe it. So David took the tests again, and the results were the same. We suspected that this woman was plotting something, and when we dug deeper, it turned out to be you, Emily. It was hilarious to think you were trying to snag the president's wealth with lies.
Caught in her scheme, Emily panicked as the venue's attendees looked at her and Jason with disdain.
And guess what? We also know who got you pregnant. It turns out to be an employee from your company. What a mess, right? Especially since he's married. I happen to be good friends with the executive of your company. We often go out drinking together. He's acquainted with David and is even here today. You thought you could manipulate the situation, being involved with David, the president, right? But what a shame, Emily. You should have done your homework better. That's how you end up being caught.
Completely disadvantaged, Emily looked down in frustration, while Jason's face turned pale. Here was no way out of this situation.
You tricked me, didn't you?
No, it's not like that.
Making excuses now just makes you look pathetic. I gave Emily a stern word, still trying to make excuses. Do you know why Tyler and his son still went ahead with this wedding, despite knowing all this?
What?
What? No way?
Emily was confused, but Jason, realizing the truth, looked at me in astonishment. Yes, that's right. It was all to settle the scores with you two. I planned this with everyone.
What the hell?
David and Thomas had been aware of Emily's lies from the start. But Thomas asked David to stop canceling the wedding. Thomas, aware of the entire situation. He knew about the harassment I faced from Jason and the troubles preventing my divorce. He knew all about it and acted accordingly. I happened to find Mom's diary while you was sleeping. You had been keeping it since the day I left. His surprise visit to my new place led him to learn of my struggles. And he worked hard at his job to put me at ease as soon as possible, and even told his girlfriend about it. In the midst of these events, when David came to Thomas for advice, Thomas saw it as an opportunity, perceiving the situation as a perfect moment for revenge. The executive from Emily's company, present at the venue, upon realizing her downfall, glared at her and immediately reported the situation to the president. After a detailed discussion with Thomas, the male involved was also brought into company meetings for scrutiny. Emily, once considered a promising candidate for a managerial position, faced social and professional repercussions due to her actions and the scandal that unfolded. Jason and Emily, fully realizing the gravity of their situation, were utterly devastated and collapsed. I delivered a final statement to them. This isn't the end. The real hell starts now. Be prepared. Through these actions, Thomas and I successfully executed our long-planned revenge. leading to the spectacular termination of Emily's marriage. While I thought the guests might be inconvenienced, they seemed to be entertained, saying it was quite a show, and none blamed us for the unfolding drama. Following these events, Emily could no longer remain at her company and was dismissed along with her affair partner, marking a significant downfall in her career and personal life. Jason faced repercussions as rumors spread, leading to being ostracized by neighbors and colleagues. Unable to live comfortably, he was forced to leave town, as I heard through the grapevine. I presented him with the divorce papers as Jason was leaving town. Knowing that Jason would refuse, I hired a lawyer. I provided the lawyer with a video shown at the wedding and the testimonies acknowledging the harassment from Emily, along with the video evidence. The case went to divorce mediation, culminating in a court victory, where I was awarded $10,000 in compensation for the emotional distress I endured. Thus, tranquility returned to my life. I still work at Tyler's store. And although Thomas suggested we live together following the incident, I chose to appreciate the sentiment without acting on it. Thomas might start his own family soon, and I have people who care for me like family around me. I am okay. Live your life fully with your beloved girlfriend. I encouraged him. Smiling at both of them, they responded with bashful laughter. I will continue to rely on Tyler's support, moving forward for my happiness at last.